Hello, and welcome to Templar on the Run, the podcast pulling back the veil of Freemasonry and shining its light wherever we can. This is Brother Bryce Baker with
Brother Wayne Ross, and we are both from Meridian 47 in Meridian, Idaho. Thank you for your interest in the world's oldest fraternity.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back to Templar on the Run. This is episode 16. It's been a minute here. This again is Brother Bryce Baker here with
And Wayne Ross from Meridian 47. We're back at it at Unbound here. I was going to say the exact same thing. It's been a minute because holidays and everything else sort of make scheduling hard.
Yeah, but glad to be back. Glad to keep doing this for you guys here, and let's get started here.
Yeah, we will. Before we get jumping in there, just want to remind everybody that these are now moving out for us on the YouTube channel, and we want to make sure to spread the word. We're not about getting subscriptions and likes necessarily, but sharing it with your lodge. If you're a brother out there somewhere, sharing this information out with your families, your coworkers. I think a lot of our content is leading to good conversation. And that's really what we wanted to start it for. So it seems like that's just a natural kind of a thing. So appreciate those who are checking out the episodes, and anytime there's questions, just let us know and we'll see what we can do about answering those.
Yeah, so, definitely. Particularly, if you have any guys coming to your lodge that are interested, I think this is a really good way to kind of show them, what Freemasonry is all about.
Yeah. At least different sides of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess not what it's all about, but
just, the majority. We know it all. So. But also the conversations too, it sort of tips into what we're going to talk about tonight. Now that we're back on our own here, I had stumbled across a book literally called The Great Conversation. And anybody my age may recognize these books and the way that they are bound, and they were a set. And you had these two, you had The Great Conversation, which was number one. And so within it are just conversation topics, short, chapter brief topics. And then the rest of the set of the books is like individual books for Kant and for Marx, and two books for Aquinas and stuff like that. So a lot of information to digest. And for me, the cool part when I was looking at it again is the set's from 1952. Mm-hmm. And I was flipping through the conversations to see what was in there and what might be applicable in our situation and what we've been working with. And I stumbled across chapter 8 in here in the Great Conversation. It's called The Next Great Change. And what I want to do is just read a couple of pages and get your take on it. It's really education focused, but again, it's 1952, and the author is sort of prognosticating of what their thoughts might be for the future, which is us now, I guess. So the next great change, since education is concerned with the future, let us ask ourselves what we know positively about the future. We know that all parts of the world are getting closer together in terms of the mechanical means of transportation and communication. We know that this will continue. The world is going to be unified by conquest or consent. We know that the fact that all parts of the world are getting closer together does not by itself mean greater unity or safety in the world. It may mean that we shall all go up in one great explosion. We know that there is no defense against the most destructive of modern weapons. Both the victor and the defeated will lose the next war. All the factors that formerly protected this country, geographical isolation, industrial strength, and military power, are now obsolete. We know that the anarchy of competing sovereign states must lead to war sooner or later. Therefore, we must have world law enforced by a world organization, which must be attained through world cooperation and community. We know that it will be impossible to induce all men to agree on all matters. The most we can hope for is to induce all men to be willing to discuss all matters instead of shooting one another about some matters. A civilization in which all men are compelled to agree is not one in which we would care to live. Under such circumstances, one world would be worse than many. For in many worlds there is least the chance of escape from one to another. The only civilization in which a free man would be willing to live is one that conceives of history as one long conversation leading to clarification and understanding. Such a civilization presupposes communication. It does not require agreement. We know that time is of the essence. Every day we read announcements of advances in transportation and advances in destruction. We can now go around the world in the time it used to take us to go from New York to Boston, and we can kill 250,000 people with one bomb. We are promised bigger and better instruments of mass murder in every issue of our daily papers. At the same time, the hostility among sovereign states is deepening by the hour. I did say 1952, right? Not 2023? Okay,
Yeah.
just saying. How can we prepare for a future like this? We see at once that the primary, not the incidental, participants in any educational program designed to cope with a future like this must be adults. They are in charge of the world. The rising generation, unless the adults in charge of the world can find some way of living together immediately, may never have a chance to rise. I do not wish to exaggerate the possibilities of adult education through great books and liberal arts, or by any other means as a method of preventing war. If all the adults in America could suddenly realize their full human potentials, which is the object of liberal education, and the government of Russia remained what it is today, we might merely have the satisfaction of being blown up with our full human potentials realized instead of unrealized. In view of the prevailing skepticism about the immortality of the soul, I cannot expect American readers to regard this as more than a dubious consolation. Yet there will not be much argument against the proposition that, on the whole, reasonable and intelligent people, even if they confront aggressively unreasonable or stupid people, have a better chance of attaining their end, which in this case is peace, than if they are themselves unreasonable and stupid. They may even be able to be, by their examples, to help their opponents to become more reasonable and less stupid. The United States is now the most powerful country in the world. It has been a world power for a very short time. It has not had the centuries of experience in which to learn how to discharge the responsibilities of a position into which it is catapulted against its will, nor has it had the kind of education in the last 50 years that is conducive to understanding its position or to maintaining it with balanced dignity and charity. An educational system that aims at vocational training or social adjustment or technological advance is not likely to lead to the kind of maturity that the present crisis demands of the most powerful nations in the world. A country that is powerful, inexperienced, and uneducated can be a great danger to world peace. The United States is unlikely to endanger peace through malevolence. The people of this country do not appear to bear any ill will toward any other people, nor do they want anything that any other people may have. Since they are devoted to their own kind of society and government, they do not want any other nation to threaten the continued prosperity of their society and government. Any military moves made by the United States will be made in the conviction that they are necessary for the defense of this country. But this conviction may be mistaken. It may be hysterical or may be ignorant. We can easily blunder into war, since we have committed such a blunder even before these words appear in print. I must repeat that I do not wish to exaggerate the importance of these books or any other means of adult education as a method of preventing such a blunder. The time is short and education is long. What I am saying is that since education is long, and since it is indispensable, we should begin it right away. As Marshal Latte was in France, he asked his gardener to plant a certain tree, the foliage of which he liked very much. The gardener said that a tree of this kind took 200 years to reach maturity. In that case, said the marshal, there is no time to lose. Plant it today. That's a good little stopping part for the first part of this short little essay. And I'd like to sort of see what you gleaned from your previous reading on this, Brother Bryce.
Yeah, so I kind of got like a comparison I drew was kind of like in the days of monarchies. Well, there are a lot of comparisons, but this first one, monarchs were kind of groomed from an early age to rule. They were given a certain education that was different than any other education that was given, because they were going to be the next king. They're going to be rulers of the people. And I think what this author's saying is we need to have that sort of system, because in America, it's run by the people, right? So everyone should have that type of education, but in our particular educational system, it is more for like vocational training or scientific research or building a career rather than governing a people.
Right.
And, you know, there are classes, you know, when you get up to the, you know, like high school, college level, on politics and things like that. But, you know, thinking back on my own education, I can't quite, like, yeah, we were taught how our political system is run and, like, you know, the different branches and things that go into that, but not necessarily how to use it, you know, or the importance doesn't sink in. So it's like that needs to be taught maybe even earlier than it is now.
Yeah, and even sort of going back to what you're saying, the thought of the monarchy, looking back now in 2023, we basically have the same system. I mean, I don't think anybody would honestly say that all politicians are different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, in our system, we got this guy or that guy. Okay,
Yeah.
that's our choices, right? And what have they been bred for the most part? They've been bred in these areas, right? Where the rest of us, we may have taken a government class, but that's not going to prep us.
Yeah.
The Bushes, the Clintons, so on and so forth. What have they been doing all their lives?
Yeah.
Basically like the monarchy,
Yeah.
right? Just getting prepped and ready to handle these conversations. And it almost makes it, in my mind, daunting for the outsiders to try to break through that and to get in there and to hold sway with what these people are doing. Another line that I liked in there: a civilization in which all men are compelled to agree is not one in which we would care to live. I think that's at the core of what we do.
Yeah.
You know, but that's
to best work and agree, right? That's another thing I noticed too in my reading. I kind of wrote down here.
Right. But we don't compel anybody to agree.
Yeah.
Right? We've agreed upon a system, and we've agreed upon certain things that we will and we won't do. And when you go against that, you're no longer going to be in the system.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a thing. So when I think about the education they're talking about, and I see a lot on Instagram and a lot of other places where people are like pushing Masonic education out to the common people, right? Or to the youth, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, I just sort of laugh and try to figure out, you know, what they're talking about, how they're gonna put that together as an educational platform.
Yeah.
Right. We see it and we get it, and it also goes to that cooperation and community. You know, building those things that, you know, is not the hallmark of public education currently. You know, not even close to that. So.
And another point too that I want to bring up, because you kind of said it, you know, we have this guy or that guy, like the cult of personality, right?
Right.
One little note I made here reading through that was so many people seem to have the same style, say the same things, while claiming to be unique or different, which is fine. Do what you will. But are they truly thinking for themselves, or are they just conforming to something that they've seen works to get people's attention?
Right.
You know, whether it's a politician, like a social media influencer, you know, it's just the same thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In different flavor, but basically the same thing.
It is, and it's, you know, very disconcerting because I can't even imagine being from another country and watching like our political debates, you know, where nobody answers a question.
Yeah.
They all deflect. They all blame somebody else. Nobody wants to be accountable. Nobody wants to make a decision. You know, nobody wants to take the beat back that's going to come from, you know, taking a stand, taking a decision, and saying this is what we're going to do, and we're going to follow it through. And if it's a mistake, then we learn from it. You know, if it's not a mistake, well, then it must have been okay from the first place.
Yeah.
Another spot, just in the rhetoric that they have here, I love the way this person writes. And I'm sorry I can't hit an author because there's a couple of names in the beginning of the book, but I don't think that's the actual authors.
Yeah.
I think the way this was put together was sort of like committee. And I think each little essay was somebody else. And unless you put the book together, there it is again, very hard to see, you know, great conversation. Unless you were the actual publisher, you probably then would know who composed each of these essays. This could be a professor. This could be a politician.
Yeah.
Who knows? This could have been, you know, a gardener. as they made reference into here, right?
Yeah, which was another great line.
Yeah.
I love that. Like why, or plant it now, get started now.
Yeah. What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
Right. And just the urgency that he's talking about, 1952, right? So they've only been a world power for so long. They're just out of World War II, right? Now, and he mentions it without mentions it, but they're getting, knocked about into Korea and these different types of things, exactly like what we've got right now. We're in this spot where we're not just in this spot. We're knocked about elsewhere. We're supporting this group and we're supporting this government and we're, funding this group and we're doing all these different types of things, but it feels to me that it's revolving back into this little swirl here, and maybe it does it all the time. I don't know. Maybe society does that. We can't ever take a real step forward.
Yeah,
we got to keep swirling in this muck and doing these things over and over again. So,
yeah, and I think that the only way to kind of change that, especially from the viewpoint of this essay, is to get that education in these areas that are kind of skipped over unless you're specifically trying to get into that,
right.
And educated people is a powerful people. I think that's another line for maybe later in the essay, something like that. But
yeah,
it's hard to make those changes because it does, a lot of we say all the time on this podcast, like, Freemasonry is about putting work in, and you're gonna get out what you put in.
Right.
Education is the same thing. Your political system's the same thing.
Yeah. It's true. It's it's daunting, I think, is also what scares people.
Yeah.
And just having these kind of thoughts and conversations without arguing.
Yeah.
Is like impossible.
Yeah.
Nowadays. Everybody's got to be right. Everybody got to argue. They can't sit down and do what we're doing right now and just talk about this person's thoughts.
Yeah.
And then seeing what's next, see what they can apply into that.
It's not a conversation or a debate, because there's back and forth in that. You listen to what they say, you respond to it, you give your thoughts, and you move on.
Yeah.
But there's never really that next step. It's always just kind of like, this is what I think. That's right, and you have to agree with me, and if not, then I just kind of shut off, and I don't care.
Or you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
We're going to cancel you.
You're deplorable.
We'll stop sponsoring you. Well,
yeah.
Whatever the case may be. Been a lot happening the last couple of weeks. It's almost interesting if you like dire stuff. Anything else from the first half that you were thinking about?
No. That's about it.
Got this lingering cough. Can't beat it.
Yeah.
So the second half rolls back, continuing on where they left off about, like you had said, that cool part about planning it today. The Great Conversation, the book itself here, symbolizes that civilization of the dialogue, which is the only civilization in which a free man would care to live. It promotes the realization of that civilization here and now. This set of books is organized on the principles of attaining clarification and understanding of the most important issues, as stated by the greatest writers of the West through continuous discussion. Its object is to project the Great Conversation into the future and to have everybody participate in it. The community toward which it is hoped that these books may contribute is the community of free minds. And I think that was a part of what you were alluding to, the line that you were talking about as well on that.
Yeah.
And again, what he's talking about in the process of the books it's all Western thought, but it goes all the way back. Like I said, you've got European authors, you've got American, you've got all of the early minds, you got Locke, you got all these other different kinds of things. And here's what I'll throw in as another little 2023 knowledge. This is not easy reading for people in 2023.
Yeah.
Goes back to that discussion we had early on, I think, about, the way it used to be in Masonry when there wasn't social media
Yeah.
and there wasn't distraction and stuff like that. In 1952, it may not have been as hard for somebody to pull out a 200-page book on Immanuel Kant. and sit there and read it without a Wikipedia to find out who this guy was, and and a video or a short brief thing on YouTube to teach us about Immanuel Kant.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you just said about putting in the work. The value of struggling with something.
Yeah, sitting down and like actually, putting your effort and time into it, and and we said that before too. Time is something that's kind of hard to come by because nowadays, everyone's got something going on all the time, and it's hard to find that. But like, you're not going to advance your knowledge in these things or your skill and whatever unless you take that time to do it.
Right. Not at all. And that just, every time I go back through this and look at it, that's sort of what hits me in that mindset of what it takes. Not only now the only defense that any nation can have is the character and intelligence of its people. The adequacy of that defense will depend upon the strength of the conviction that the nation is worth defending. This conviction must rest on a comprehension of the values for which the nation stands. In the case of the United States, those values are to be found in the tradition of the West. The tradition of the West is the great conversation. We have repeated to ourselves so much of late the slogan, "America must be strong," that we have forgotten what strength is. We appear to believe that strength consists of masses of men and machines. I do not deny that they have their role, but surely the essential ingredients of strength are trained intelligence, love of country, the understanding of its ideals, and such devotion to those ideals that they become a part of the thought and life of every citizen. I like that last line.
Yeah. And this section kind of brings me back to, or the mental picture I get is, like a Greek amphitheater, guys in togas, just like, debating, giving their points, and that's what, I think the political system we're trying to get to wants to be. Yeah. But again, we fall into this cult of personality where we get this guy or this guy who have been groomed to like do this or that.
Yeah.
Or this girl nowadays, sorry, this woman.
Yes.
No judgment.
No, not at all. Also, the other thing that hits me on this point too, America must be strong. Not going to say the catchphrase, but the former previous president's catchphrase about America. I think we live in a great country.
Yeah.
I don't know what other people see, necessarily. Yes, we have a lot we have to work on, but who's choosing to work on it?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Right? They're choosing just to, the cult of personality, just let us bicker, let us fight, let us not come together and find commonality.
Yeah.
Right? Let us just pick each other apart for mere scraps of YouTube popularity.
Yeah.
Keep us entertained, what it feels like. We cannot hope to make ourselves intelligible to the rest of the world unless we understand ourselves. We now present a confusing picture to other peoples largely because we are ourselves confused. I swear he's writing right now. To take only one example, how can we say that we are a part of the great tradition of the West, the essence of which is that nothing is to be undiscussed, when some of our most representative citizens constantly demand the suppression of freedom of speech in the interest of national security? Now that military power is obsolescent, the national security depends on our understanding of all and devotion to such Western liberties as free speech. If we abandon our ideals under external pressure, we give away without a fight what we would be fighting for if we went to war. We abandon the source of our strength. Right back here at the top, he was saying, the essence of which is that nothing is to be undiscussed. When some of our most representative citizens constantly demand the suppression of freedom in the interest of national security. I work at a school with at-risk students, so they've had a lot of brushes with law enforcement. But at their age, high schoolers, they are used to what they see from police officers physically, all the gear, a tank, almost in every city, the militarization of that. When I was growing up, we didn't see that. We watched Chips on TV, and everybody was riding their Harley motorcycle cops, right? But it was way different, and of course, things have changed. 9/11, Homeland Security, all those different things have changed in my lifetime and in your lifetime to a point to where militarization is almost accepted.
Yeah.
And you see that out on the streets and you understand why. We're a very free country. They have to be prepared, the police, for what the citizens could bring to the table, is the way I think about it. And sometimes talk with the students on different kinds of things about this and how it works out. They have to be ready for that elevated game, because we're at that point where John Citizen can have an AR or whatever else. So how are you going to defend against that unless you're there too?
Yeah.
But then what does that do when they're rolling down your street,
Yeah.
3 deep, whatever, and they've got all the tackle and the gear and, and all this different kind of stuff. It sort of gives off that impression of like perceived strength, but is it real strength? I mean, who gives them their position? Us, the people.
Yeah.
Is the way that I think about it,
Yeah, that's a good point too. I hadn't even really thought about what a police officer looks like nowadays versus before. But then, I was still pretty young when 9/11 happened, and I just, but I think back to like movies about times before that, and, they're just kind of in a regular uniform, but now they are much more geared up, and they look almost like, they're going to combat, like for the army or something. And I that's a comparison I hadn't made before, so that's pretty interesting to think about, actually.
Well, and for not right-minded thinking people, it portrays aggression.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't portray aggression. My cousin works here locally in the department and stuff like that, and it never has. That was going to be my occupation too, had things not gone the way they did. But to me, it doesn't portray aggression. To those younger than us, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're seeing, that's what they're being taught, so on and so forth. But is anybody having a real discussion about it?
No.
No.
Because I guess, like, in my kind of youth, like, we're talking about, like, high school or younger, it's like, that was just after, 9/11, when I feel like police especially were still kind of, like, heroes, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, this is just my take, they almost seem demonized in a lot of ways on the news and, with all the different stuff that's been going on, when, they are there to protect and serve, and, like, bad stuff happens, but, like, that's going to happen with anyone, So that's a tough situation. That's another tough conversation.
It is, but that's what's good about it.
Yeah.
Easy conversations are no fun.
Yeah.
It's like getting something for free.
Yeah.
You appreciate those things that you work for, that you put the time in for, what was it, 2 weeks back? We were doing a degree for another lodge, and you just knocked it out of the park, and everybody was just blown away. You put in the freaking work.
Yeah.
You didn't have like Google Glasses giving you the lines or anything, or, you weren't cheating it. You did the work, you put it in, and you got the accolades that you deserved. Plus, you inspire others in that process.
Yeah.
Which is, again, where I fold back to what we do that other men don't do. We take the time to learn these things and pass them on to others. And then that next guy was going to pass it on to somebody else. We're not going to change the world a person at a time.
Yeah.
But we can impact our city, our community, our family, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
We continue to do good things, helping somebody out, learning this stuff, passing it on, and it could give them a whole new mindset to help them solidify their relationship at home or, their work or something like that. Then we've done something good.
Yeah.
We've engaged this part of the mind that we sort of shut off in that kind of an aspect, And again, it's hard conversations, but this is what's great about this here and the way that it talks about all these different kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's really cool. How can we say that we are defending the tradition of the West if we do not know what it is. An educational program for young people or adults from which the tradition has disappeared fails, of course, to transmit it to our own people. It also fails to convince other people that we are devoted to it as we claim. Any detached observer looking at the American educational system can see that the bulk of its activity is irrelevant to any of the things we know about the future. And you're just starting work in that system, right? So yeah, you'll be able to
see it firsthand.
Yeah, you'll get to see that, Vocationalism, scientism, specialism can at the most assist our people to earn a living and thus maintain the economy of the United States. They cannot contribute to the much more important elements of national strength, trained intelligence, the understanding of a country's ideals and devotion to them, nor can they contribute to the growth of a community in this country. They are divisive rather than unifying forces. Vocational training, scientific experimentation, and specialization do not have to supplant liberal education in order to make their economic contribution. We can have liberal education for all and vocational training, scientific experimentation, and specialization too. This part here in particular sums up our swirl in this country, especially of what we think education is supposed to be. And listeners, viewers, whatever, whenever it says liberal education, it doesn't mean the left.
Yeah.
Let's remember that. This is philosophy. This is rhetoric. This is discourse. Okay? This is not left-leaning ideals. This is what they mean by a liberal education. Yeah. So by bringing it together with the voc ed, okay, but the focus is never that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you need the plumber at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
when your toilet is blown to shreds and water's going everywhere. You want that person who knows that job, and you're going to pay them whatever their hourly wage is that they've earned to learn that skill. Mm-hmm. But is that all that they're supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, no. And that's, even speaking to that right there, one note I had in this kind of part, it says America is powerful. Are we still inexperienced, though, like today? Are we maybe miseducated or undereducated in certain aspects or areas, like government politics, like the plumber? Is that all he knows? He can't go beyond that and learn more.
Right.
I feel like some people think that way, that's all they do, that's all they care about, that's all they know, or they think that's all that person knows, that's all they care about, that's all they know. We don't take that further step to have that further conversation and find out.
Right.
And then sometimes we're not really given the chance to show what we do know,
yeah.
or share,
yeah.
for whatever reason. Another one here. So our devotion to our own kind of society and government has that vastly changed compared to this time? Because I feel like we aren't as unified as we once were.
Right. No, we're not anywhere near unified.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that point that unification isn't good.
Yeah.
The last time Americans unified was against the British.
Yeah.
We've had times in the past, 9/11, different things like that have unified us. But that unified us for a week?
Yeah.
Those Cult of Personality, and I just keep hearing the song over and over again. Living Color, one of the greatest bands ever. Anyways, they would be afraid of that, and they don't want that. We know that. Anytime you try to suppress freedom of speech, anytime you try to suppress, in countries that suppress Freemasonry, is at its core, I want to say, not because they hide behind religion or other kind of things. It's because of the educational aspects to it.
Yeah.
Right? That you don't want people coming together without you knowing it.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want them putting their own ideas into motion. So,
crazy side note, didn't the Pope just kind of release another edict pretty recently saying Catholics can't be Freemasons? I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
I saw something, but currently I'm sort of obsessed with Ireland a little bit more, so and what's happening there. So I think I saw something on that, which is surprising.
Yeah.
But we'd have to go a little deeper, and then maybe we could call our our buddy, the very Reverend.
There we go. Yeah.
He could give us some clarification on it,
Yeah.
you know, and see what's what. One other thing real quick about this idea, it reminds me of a conversation I had multiple years ago. One of my favorite books is The Great Gatsby. And every time I taught AP English, it was always what I was working with, you know, always working with that.
Great movie.
Yes. No, it was a good movie. And, you know, Baz Luhrmann does good movies. But I had a conversation with another teacher who was basically flat out saying that what you learn in The Great Gatsby will not impact the life of a plumber. And I was like, you couldn't be more off your rocker. You know, so I had to defend one of the up there novels of Western American lit as to why it's applicable to all people. You know, yes, it's applicable. The lessons, the story, the understanding in there. Is it going to change the way that they do their job? No. But our job is not all that we are.
Yeah.
You know, we have thoughts, we have ideas. We could be in a situation ourselves like Gatsby, who's longing for his lost love. You know, it's almost a cautionary tale. It doesn't end well for Gatsby, you know, in those different kind of aspects. So that's another side note to education. Leaving politics out of it, you have a lot of people who can't even agree because their interpretations are different.
Yeah.
You know, or what they think or what they were taught in those kind of aspects, you know, and then they become those teachers in those classrooms.
Yeah. And kind of tying back to what the book is saying here too, he said, you know, our job is not all we are, but that seems to be what a lot of people kind of think now, especially, you know, outside of yourself. You know, it's like that person is just that. That's all they do. And then I feel like some people just get stuck in that too. It's like, oh, well, this is what I am. This is all I know. This is all I do. I don't want to go beyond that. I don't want to try to go beyond that.
Yeah.
I think that is sort of a big issue nowadays for.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how to fix that, you know, or to get out of that. But then again, it's not really up to me. It's up to that person.
Yeah, but we do that as we go off on our rabbit trails again.
Yeah.
We do that in the lodge.
Yeah.
We have teachers and bankers and farmers and, you know, you name it, we've got it.
Yeah.
So
we got one guy that loves his corn.
Yes, we do. Definitely. Got to give Petey his due for his corn.
Yeah.
But, you know, we are that microcosm where we bring people together and treat each other the same and work through and work together.
Yeah.
So it's possible, it's doable, but again, it takes work.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Not easy to roll this out in any kind of a huge format either.
Yeah.
So we hear a great deal nowadays about international understanding, world community, and world organization. These things are all supposed to be good, but nothing very concrete is put forward as to the method by which they can be attained. We can be positive on one point. We are safe in saying that these things will not be brought about by vocational training, scientific experimentation, and specialization. The kind of education we have for our young people and adults in the United States today will not advance these causes. I should like to suggest one or two ways in which that may be advanced. We should first dispose of the proposition that we cannot have world organization, a world of law, without a world community. This appears to overlook the obvious interaction between legal institutions and culture. As Aristotle pointed out long ago, law is itself an educational force. The Constitution of the United States educates the people every day to believe in and support the Constitution of the United States. World community, in the sense of perfect understanding among all peoples everywhere, is not required in order to have the beginnings of world law. What is required is that minimum understanding, which is sufficient to allow world law to begin. From that point forward, world law will support world community, and world community will support world law. Side note to all you conspiracy theorists out there, we are not talking about the New World Order. Don't even know if this guy was a Mason or whoever this was that wrote this.
Yeah.
Sounds male. It has a definite male aggression to it in the reading. So I presuppose that it's a man. But it goes back to that same idea. We don't all have to agree on our individual cultural beliefs, but we can agree that killing people's bad.
Yeah. Pretty easy.
Can we agree on that? We don't,
Yeah.
because groups are still doing it,
Yeah.
right? We see it it's happening in multiple countries. It's happening in our country. People are killing each other every day over who knows what, half the time. That would seem to me a real quick fix if we stopped killing each other.
Yeah. That'd be nice, but it comes down to like, we don't know why they're doing that, what the deal is, but the majority of us know that it's not good. How do we just get to that minority that's still doing it?
Yeah.
And I mean minority in the statistical sense, not to get myself in any trouble.
No. Totally understand what you're talking about. Yeah, it is that. Again, it's not this country. It's, both North, South America. It's Europe. It's Middle East. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not a war between two big factions, it's a war in the streets. It's a continual, fight for survival, when we all do understand that, killing's bad.
Yeah.
Living's good. You get one shot at it, so what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just naive growing up in this country, but I don't think so. I don't know. For example, there are those who oppose the discussion of universal disarmament on the ground that disarmament is an effect and not a cause. They say that until the tensions in the world are removed, disarmament cannot take place, and that we shall simply deceive ourselves if we talk about it instead of doing something about the tensions. Actually, one way to do something about the tension is to talk about disarmament. The manifestation of a general willingness to disarm under effective international regulation and control would do more to relieve the tensions in the world than any other single thing. Getting together to see whether such a plan could be formulated would relieve tension. No doubt there would be disappointments and the risk of exacerbating international irritations, but to refuse to discuss the principal method of mitigating tensions on the ground that they have to be mitigated before it is discussed does not seem to be the best way to mitigate them. Disarmament.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, because then it'll be, what are we disarming?
Yeah.
What are we taking away?
Yeah.
Is it just this? Is it just the nuclear bombs? Is it everybody's shotgun? What is it?
Yeah. That was a part I couldn't quite wrap my head around, because if you take it away from the people, then who's still going to have it? Who's still going to be able to have it? Because what enforcement would there be for when people, do something?
No, the ruling class, always.
Yeah.
We look through history. Whoever's on top has some weapons to keep the others in line.
Yeah.
Whether it's bows and arrows and swords or clubs, how far ever back you want to go, when we're hanging out in caves or whatever, right? A big stone.
Yeah.
There's always going to be somebody who has a tactical advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But to what effect? And what impact if we all continue down the same exact road and then we just don't even have the discussion, which is sort of what I think he's talking about here by talking and using the word mitigating so many times that it throws you off what he's talking about.
Yeah.
What are the best ways of promoting that minimum of understanding which is necessary to permit world law to begin? If community depends on communication, we must ask what kinds of things can be most readily communicated to and comprehended by the largest number of people, and what kinds of things tell the most about the people who are doing the communicating. It appears that the kind of things that are most intelligible and most revealing are ideas and artistic objects. They are most readily understood. They are most characteristic of the peoples who have produced or stated them. We can learn more about another people from their artistic and intellectual productions than we can from all the statistics and data that can ever be collected. We can learn more, that is, of what we need to know in order to found a world community. We can learn more in the sense that we can understand more. What we have in this set of books is a means by which people who can read English and can understand the West. We in the West can understand ourselves and one another. People in other parts of the world can understand us. This leads us to the idea that Scott Buchanan has put forward, the idea of a world republic of law and justice and a world republic of learning mutually supporting each other. Any republic maintains its justice, peace, freedom, and order by the exercise of intelligence. Every assent on the part of the governed is a product of learning. A republic is a common educational life in process. So Montesquieu said that as the principle of the aristocracy was honor and the principle of a tyranny was fear, the principle of a democracy was education. Thomas Jefferson took him seriously. Now we discover that a little learning is a dangerous thing. We see now that we need more learning, more real learning for everybody. The Republic of Learning is that republic toward which all mere political republics gravitate, and which they must serve it if they are to be true to themselves. No one saw this before yesterday, and we only today are able to begin to measure what we should do about it tomorrow. The immediate inference from this insight is a utopia for today, the extension of universal education to every man and woman from childhood to the grave. It is time to take education away from the scholars and school teachers and open the gates of the Republic of Learning to those who can and will make it responsible to humanity. Learning is in principle and should be in fact the highest common good, to be defended as a right and worked for as an end. All men are capable of learning according to their abilities. Learning does not stop as long as man lives, unless his learning power atrophies because he does not use it. Political freedom cannot last without provision for the free, unlimited acquisition of knowledge. Truth is not long retained in human affairs without continual learning and relearning. A political order is tyrannical if it is not rational. If we aim at a world republic of law and justice, we must recover and revive the great tradition of liberal human thought, rethink our knowledge in its light and shadow, and set up the devices of learning by which everybody can, perhaps for the first time, become a citizen of the world. The kind of understanding that comes through belonging to the world republic of learning is the kind that constitutes the world community. The world republic of law and justice is nothing but the political expression of the world republic of learning and the world community. The end.
So I think two important points that I heard there were basically a little learning is a dangerous thing, and then basically if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I think what I think he kind of meant by a little learning is a dangerous thing was literal, like if you don't have much education in one thing, that might be dangerous because you think you know something, but that kind of tricks you into not wanting to learn more, maybe. And then the atrophy of education, because if you're not continuing to build upon what you learn, then you're not learning and you do lose it, right?
Yeah.
And those two I see kind of tied together there.
Well, they definitely are too, and you know, it's not just a meme, it's true. If people get all of their knowledge or their information from Instagram or Facebook, that's a little bit of knowledge is dangerous, right? If you're not fact checking, if you're not finding out for yourself, you know, what's going on, that could impact the way you vote. That could impact, you know, the product you buy or you don't, or all these different types of things, right? So yeah, there needs to be full barrel education. And I like the way that he was also talking about, you know, as a school teacher, I understand what he's saying about taking it away. You know, it is time to take education away from the scholars and school teachers and to open the gates of the Republic of Learning to those who can and will make it responsible to humanity. That's just awesome. When you think about it, you know, it's like any system that we rework because it isn't working well.
Yeah.
You know, why not, you know, take it in and redo it in another aspect? You know, I'm totally not advocating that, you know, anybody can teach this, that, or the other thing. We all go to school and we get our education in that. But again, that doesn't mean that that's it. You know, doesn't mean that that's all that we do or all that we can do, you know. And that doesn't mean that anybody can come in from another occupation and run a school, you know. Could a Fortune 500 guy come in and run a school? Parts of it, you know, and maybe make it run more efficiently.
Yeah.
But as a business model, the thing that people forget is you want schools for the most part in America, we want it to educate our students, but we don't want it to educate them the way unless we want them to be educated that way, first of all. You know, and it's got to be done in a certain amount of time, and it's got to be done fast, essentially, and it's got to be equal, and it's got to be all these different kinds of things, right? And if you put that into a work model, okay, if somebody's not pulling their weight, they get fired. You don't fire students.
Yeah.
So there goes your business model, right? Because you're not in a business world. So that's where that acumen has to take over here, where it's sort of talking about that, you know, move into this this responsibility to humanity in and of itself, not just this educational piece and this educational piece. How are we bringing it together as a whole?
Yeah.
Right. What are we creating, and what are we trying to move forward?
Yeah.
In that aspect.
And I think another thing you said, you know, it has to be done in a certain amount of time. Like just today, I overheard, you know, like a 5th or 6th grader or something telling another student, you know, oh, don't you realize like all this stuff piles up in your permanent record, and if you know, if there's too much on there, then you can't go to college, and then you can't do anything, you know. And that's like, is that how they're all thinking? You know, like if you don't go to college, if you don't do this in school, then you can't go on to like be successful, or like where, you know, what does that kind of thinking, like what path does that lead to, you know? Because like that kind of hurt me to hear that, because I was like, man, like yeah, you got a point there, but you know, there's a bunch of other things you can do, and it's not necessarily the end of it, you know, because there's always a path to education if you just like, you know, look for it.
Yeah, and some people need to go a roundabout way, and you know, some people need to take some time, and they need to struggle through. And but the other disheartening part is that a 5th or 6th grader is worrying about that.
Yeah,
you know,
I was very surprised to hear that. I was like, man, like that's kind of true in a way, but like I can't believe I just heard you say that. You're so young, man. Like I was not thinking about college when I was in 5th grade.
No, not at all. You know, and then what's the end all be all, that they have to go to college to get that job? Okay, maybe, yes, right? Again, depending upon where they're going, what they're doing, so on and so forth. You know, what is the emphasis? What is the point to the education?
Yeah. It
shouldn't be only to get the job.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be only to go to college to get in debt and then get the job.
Yeah.
It should be to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I heard a great line today from one of the teachers who basically was saying, you know, when students are upset about stuff, this and that or whatever, it's like, well, you know, you're not here because you already know the stuff.
Yeah.
You came to learn it.
Yeah.
So get to work. You know, it's like if you knew all this stuff, then, you know, we got ways around that, especially in high school. You know, we've got things that we can do. But obviously, you need to learn it.
Yeah.
So you need to be here. You need to put in that time. But again, it rolls back to that putting in the time, you know, and it feels like, yeah, we don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know, we look around the country and see the things that are going on and around the world, and, you know, where you've got such disparity in income in different places. It's like they're just working hand to mouth to survive.
Yeah.
How then do they without us? You know, and that's what I think they're really getting at here for this world, you know, education, this world republic coming together. You know, the haves not stepping away from the have-nots.
Yeah.
You know, and however we want to take what a have is, I don't, you know, that would be a ridiculous conversation, right? People know if they've got the ability to teach others, you know, they can pass that on. And we've seen that, you know, a couple of our friends, like up on the screen there, you know, just the things that they're doing locally or around the world, and they come and they give their time, and we talk about it and pass that on to others.
Yeah.
You know, it's expanding that knowledge base.
Yeah.
So was there, since we finished out with that, was there anything else that you had on your list that you were pulling up from there?
I mean, the last little quote I had here: learning should be the highest common good. Where's that goal? I can't. Pretty sure it says good. That's. I think that should be the overall message here. It's just don't ever think you know everything about anything, because there's always something more to learn.
Oh yeah.
Because when you do that, you just trick yourself into not learning more, and then you're not growing.
Yeah. It atrophies, like he says in here. You get complacent, right?
Yeah.
It may not impact necessarily what you're doing from day to day, but if you take that time and you read, a good book, you read a book, you read a magazine, you read the newspaper, you spend some time learning a new craft, all that different kind of stuff, just educating in and of yourself.
Yeah.
And then it passes on into that other aspect. What this author in this time period seemed to really be afraid of was, what they were living through at that time. That everybody was going to get blown up.
Yeah.
Because now we have the atomic bombs, and you see those old videos. I'm sure you've seen them of the drills they used to do in schools. Atomic
under the table
blast. Yeah. Okay. That'll do good, right?
Yeah.
So again, but we live in that. That could happen, I guess. It hasn't. Hopefully it won't. But we can not live under that fear, that umbrella of fear, which is what I pull from this too, right? How do we create a great world community? This tool right here is one of those things.
Yeah.
Right? We're reaching out, our listeners from other countries across the ocean, so on and so forth. Agree, disagree, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Have the conversation with us, doesn't matter. Have the conversation with somebody else, cool. Keeps those ideas moving and growing.
Exactly.
If we're using it as good.
Yeah, properly.
We're not using it for evil. We're using it as a platform that humanity can grow and learn from. Which again is just awe-inspiring that we have these tools. And now, as you and I have found, anybody can do this.
Yeah.
If you're living right here in Meridian and you want to get on and express yourself, you can do it. There's nothing holding anybody back anymore.
Yeah.
And that could inspire somebody else. That could move somebody else down the road, so on and so forth. And I would have hoped by now from this author from 1952 that we would have been in a much better evolved place, but we know we're not.
Yeah.
But who knows what's coming next, right?
Yeah.
Everything's advancing so fast that, the next bit of tools, could be that thing that really helps us to start to see our commonalities.
Yeah.
In there, so.
That's all we're hoping for.
Yeah. So almost a little bit of philosophical meanderings.
Yeah, I don't think
in this
we could really help it though.
No, not at all. I think that's the point to it. Is it's supposed to make us think.
Yeah.
Make us process. We're natural. You and I are natural thinkers all the time, anyways. Well, everybody is, right? But this kind of a thing sets your gears in motion even more.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that in our next meetings and stuff like that, the more of this kind of stuff that we read, so on and so forth, it's going to impact that.
Yeah.
As we move forward in our own areas of leadership, community, family, whatever the case may be.
Mm.
So I think it's a good value to go back to the written word every now and then.
Yeah, definitely nice. So.
Well, looks like we're marching into that time.
Yeah.
If you could remind our viewers.
Of course. So, check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, which I think is going away soon, but we'll figure something out. But, Templar on the Run there. Templar on the Run, pretty much everything on Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. The only thing is for Instagram, we're Temp on the Run. So please check us out there. You know, we post stuff we do, stuff our lodge does.
Brother Bryce in the big chair.
Yeah.
Go check it out just for that.
Yeah, the throne of Boise too, which is pretty cool. And then if you have any questions, you know, email us at templarontherun@gmail.com. We're always happy to share lodge ideas. You know, we really like to get together with our brothers and push fellowship, because that's really something that seems to keep our lodge alive. And, you know, even other brothers are, you know, coming and hanging out with us because we actually get together and do stuff, you know, and that's what it's all about. So.
That is exactly what it's all about. And can't reiterate enough, like Brother Bryce said, and questions, send them out to us. And you know, in the very beginning we had that brother from back east reach out, and we did an episode like that right over the phone. And you know, if you're somewhere else in another state or across the ocean, whatever, you know, and want to get in and engage and have a conversation, you think we're totally off our rocker, you know,
that's fine too.
Yeah. Let's have a discussion. You know, that's what this platform should be all about.
Yeah.
You know, continuing that knowledge, continuing that education.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, Brother Bryce with
Brother Wayne
from here at Meridian Unbound, Meridian Lodge 47. Yeah. Give us a follow, give us a like, all that good stuff.
Have a great evening.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, everyone, thanks for listening to Templar on the Run. Please check us out at Twitter and Reddit at Templar on the Run. Our Instagram is at Temp on the Run. We got TikTok at Templar on the Run. And if you have any questions or anything else that you can't reach us on any of those other platforms, please send them to templarontherun@gmail.com. We thank you for listening and have a great day.